Welcome to the One Advantage podcast, exploring the intersections of peer power, culture, and agility. Your hosts, Mike Richardson, Jason Richmond, and Leo Bottari, co-founders of the One Advantage community of practice and advantage peer groups.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the One Advantage podcast with my best friends and agile culture peer buddies, Jason Richmond and Leo Bottari. Hey guys, how you doing?
Fantastic.
Thank you. We have a really important topic to get into today. We're calling it the new talent war, everybody, the new war for talent. You've been reading so much about it. You've been hearing so much about it. The great resignation, the great reassessment, the great reshuffle. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's all the same thing. It's the new war for talent. And I suspect, Leo and Jason, let's hear what you think. I suspect this is going to be such a big topic. We are going to be talking about this repeatedly for some time to come. What do you think, Jason?
Well, Mike, I think so. And on future podcasts, as we talk about bringing on, subject matter experts, corporate practitioners, those types of things, I do not think this topic is going to go away for a long time. Matter of fact, I just recently read an article in Fortune magazine, Mike, and it was fascinating. And experts and practitioners in corporate America are predicting that this is going to be a challenge and on their forefront all the way through 2031.
There you go. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and probably beyond. The reason I called this the new talent war is actually a nod back to a very famous article in the 1986 Harvard Business Review called The New Product Development Game that many people, myself included, still point back to as the source of the whole agile movement that here we are still talking about nearly 40 years later. Leo, what do you think? How long are we going to be talking about this whole talent war thing?
Well, certainly for as long as I'm going to be walking the earth, I think that's for sure. But no, what's really great, and I'm looking forward to getting into this today because the balance of power has changed. The rules have changed. I'm not sure at the end of the day, it isn't a really good thing, especially for those companies out there that are attuned to what the workforce is really needing today. So it's a really exciting conversation.
Yeah. So everybody, we have been talking about the war for talent for decades, but I think as we're about to get into, the landscape has shifted so much. The battleground has changed, as you just heard Leo and Jason articulating. It's a whole new battleground, a whole new war. Jason, when you think about it, what are some of the new dimensions, layers, levels to the new war for talent that are apparent for you?
Well, something that comes right off the top of my mind, and I have had several relationships with our clients about this topic, is how to shift the mindset and the rethinking. Not as individuals, but corporations really rethinking, having a mindset shift,
right, with
the relationship between people and work, right? And Leo mentioned the balance of power have changed, and that is it's so much important in regards to, because it is a relationship. Individuals, employees, executives, leaders, directors, they have a relationship with their work, and that level of an organization to be flexible to respond, to individuals, to their different circumstances. So that relationship between relationships and work, I think, is one of the key factors that really come out, and really been a lot of work and conversations with our client base, around that.
Yeah, I love that idea, and sort of the paradigm shift, right, of a new paradigm of a relationship between the individual and work, and probably, frankly, a new paradigm of work itself. And what work is. Leo, what's apparent for you as you think about this?
Well, what's apparent for me is I wrote a piece recently for CEO World to talk about the fact that leadership, in terms of the fundamentals of it, in terms of the basic principles of it, haven't changed in 50 years. No. How people want to be led has changed a lot. And I think in many respects, for anyone who wants to go back to pre-2020, good luck with that. right? Because employees have been introduced to something different and something new and something very liberating in many respects. And we have to understand what's going on in their hearts and minds with regard to, as Jason talked about, this relationship they have with work. And, I kind of think about this. There's a Thomas Jefferson quote that I'm not going to get exactly, but the idea of is that there are certain things where we have to stand like a rock, right? And those are our values and our principles and our commitment to excellence and quality. But then in other areas, we have to swim with the current. We have to really kind of understand what the dynamics are, which speaks to agility, right? And our ability now to be able to look at this workplace, look at this workforce, look at what we want to do so we can maintain and even increase those quality standards and lean into our values, right? So I think this is going to be essential going forward. And like I said, I look forward to getting into some of the specifics of that, because what attracts and retains employees today is very different than it was even 3 years ago.
Yeah, and I think for me, and we'll keep going around here to try to sort of fully peel this onion, one of the directions that the current is flowing in increasingly in an unstoppable way that you just cannot fight, everybody, is the definition of talent is also changing. We aren't just talking about employees anymore. We're also increasingly now talking about non-employees, whether you call them freelancers or gig workers or consultants or coaches or portfolio professionals is a modern concept for that. People that have a portfolio of activities, a portfolio of clients, a portfolio of specialties. And there are some predictions that more than 50% of the workforce before too long will be portfolio. Yeah. They won't work for you. They won't have a W-2 relationship with you. And that's going to change the equation, Jason, correct?
Well, you hit it out of the park, Mike. The 20-year career is going to be rare. Right? The 20-year career is rare. Right now, the average is 4 years. Right. So our workforce, our population has become so much more transient, right? And which impacts recruitment. I mean, people might want to work in Chicago for a couple, 3 years, but then move to San Francisco and they realize they've got this life change and there's so much out there and they're going to London or Singapore.
Yeah.
So the world has gotten smaller in regards to our workforce and flexibility. And it goes with your point that you just talked about. We're becoming so much more transient. And like I said, the 20-year career is gone.
Yeah. And we hear this. Go ahead,
Mike. No, please go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was going to say, we hear this phrase digital nomads, don't we? Where whether people are employed or self-employed, they, to some degree, are more and more able to work from anywhere. Of course, everybody's got the dreamy picture in their minds of sat on a beach with a pina colada. That's not the reality, but the ability to perhaps go on a world tour for the next 5 or 10 years before you settle down, those things are now a possibility. Go ahead, Leo.
Just look at the information we have access to today. Even today, I still am discovering things that people do for a line of work, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know people could do that and get paid for it. That is like so cool. So we're all on a personal journey of real exploration and discovery, and figuring out what are we good at, what do we love to do, where can we add value, and when we can find a place where, quite frankly, this is where I think this is a win-win, right? So if I'm an employer and I've got someone who's truly passionate about what they do and they can add value to me in a really powerful way, and they see the potential in themselves to grow as a professional, they want to be part of the purposeful organization we have where it's our shared purpose versus in connected to their personal mission in life, and to be able to feel as if, the word is play, right? It's not in a playful sense, but it is in that flow, doing that work where they're happiest, where the employer's happiest. It's an unbelievable win-win situation. And if we just change our mindset around the fact that everyone's going to come into the office so we can think we're going to hover over people because, boy, they're sitting at their desk, so they must be working. It's just lunacy anyway, right? It was never true. But now, so we're clinging on to that.
And I love that sort of contrast between the word work that we've become so indoctrinated to, and your use of the word play, which is actually where we want to be, right? More in terms of having a dynamic, flowing experience with team members. What do you think, Jason? What else comes up for you?
Well, and Leo kind of hit upon this earlier on when he mentioned, employees, workers, the population, they want different things now. You got to remember a couple things. Right now, baby boomers are retiring at the fastest rate they've ever retiring early.
Yeah.
Right. So we got a large population that's taking early retirement. And right now, if you look at the workforce, millennials is the largest generation of the workforce. Right. And what they're looking for is job mobility, flexibility, and really mission and corporate responsibility, which links to what Leo said about shared purpose.
Yeah.
Right? And these are the important things in recruitment and hiring top talent and retention. If we're not hiring for those things, I think we're missing the boat.
Yeah, and something else that comes up for me, and I shared this in a previous couple of episodes. My two boys are 31 and 28.
Yep.
So they've been in the workforce for sort of 8 or 10 years now. They're both on their fourth job, which speaks back to what you said earlier. And typically they call me up and said, "I'm leaving, Dad. I'm going to go do something else." They usually quit before they have their next thing, because that's what kids do these days. And I'll ask them why, and they say, "Well, the leadership here doesn't inspire me. I don't believe in their leadership, their core values, them walking the talk. I don't believe in their agility. And they just don't inspire confidence in me to want to continue to sort of keep placing my bet here." And for me, that all has to start from the very, very, very top down. Of course, it's a bottom-up process as well. Of course, it has to happen in all the layers of middle management, but it has to start from the very top down. And I think, therefore, another element of this whole war for talent to inspire confidence and belief starts with the board.
Yeah.
And the conversations, we talked in the last couple of episodes about agility and conversation flow to cash flow. The conversation flow that starts at the level of the board, and typically a governance board might not be so great at that. So we're seeing a rising tide of advisory boards that can have a much more agile conversation flow to supplement the governance board, from which the whole cascade of confidence building, inspiring conversation flow can cascade from there.
I think there are two other dynamics, and I spoke to both of these in the CEO World piece as well. One of them is that the way kids are parented today, even the way I was parented in many respects, right? People in generations ago grew up in an authoritarian household. You know what? Do it.
Yep.
This is what you're supposed to do. If you have opinion on something, you're just a kid, right. So today, of course, I think about my kids. I think about growing up and really listening to their perspectives from a much younger age than my parents ever gave me that credibility for, recognizing that I grew up in a world, for example, where wars were away games. Our kids grew up in 9/11. Our kids grew up with an entirely different sense of so many things that shape the way they see the world. And the other part of it, too, is that young people going into the workplace today can deliver immediate value, particularly with regard to a lot of their skills around digital and social media and all of that. And in a way where it isn't just you show up to company and you learn the ropes and you get the experience and all this stuff, they can be impactful right away. So the relationship and the dynamic, starting with our parents, going into a workplace where we can deliver, immediate value, changes everything with regard to what the relationship is and why people seek to be led differently today than those did 20, 30, 40 years ago.
So well said. I love what you just said about wars being away games. Of course, being English, that was a little different for us. But
yeah, true.
We still make movies about it because we have little else to make movies about. Anyway, Jason.
Well, that's so interesting, because me growing up, I was always told if you want something done right, you do it yourself, right? And that authoritative aspect, and that element is gone. Recently, I started doing some research for an upcoming article I'm going to write, just around this topic, around recruitment, around top talent, retention of talent. And already early on in my research, I'm coming out with a common thread, and that individuals coming into the workforce now that have this value to bring right now, that they don't want to be employees. They don't want to be viewed as employees.
Yeah.
They really want, more important to them is the variety of experiences they have and the impact that they can bring to an organization or a group or a company right away. Yeah. Right. So it's been fascinating. I got probably another 60 days of work to do, but already it's a very common theme in line with what you're saying. And it's more experiential based. I mean, recruitment right now is a $19 billion global industry.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
It's
and
huge.
And by the way, I've got a number of boards and things and clients that I'm working with where they're struggling to get senior talent. In some cases, they're trying to recruit a CEO for a transition, and they just can't find the CEO. And so I think I was reading something only the other day about the fact that more and more companies, to get the talent they want, are going to have to look at contingent, fractional, part-time, if not portfolio talent, because they have no other choice to fill the seats that they need to fill.
Correct.
And I love what you said, Jason, about, at least in people's mindset, younger people in particular, when they come in the door, they've got 1 foot out the door. They're already kind of on the fence, right? They're already wanting more of an experience than being an employee. And if that experience sort of turns the wrong way, they're halfway out the door already. And it's so easy.
Last month, I was working with a large distribution company, and this was down in Florida. And it was fascinating to me because, they're coming out of the pandemic too, and they hired 26 people, right, in this big pool, this big recruiting job. They had a job fair, right? They hired 26 people. 8 of them showed up to work.
Oh boy.
Ghosted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
that's
so
what
I'm working with them now to figure out what that disconnect is, right? And what's broken in that process. But that, I bet you there's listeners out there that can relate to that story.
And
Absolutely.
As we now sort of relate this to, our focus, a peer-powered culture of agility, I think that expresses so well, Leo, doesn't it? What people want to believe in. They want to feel like I'm playing on a team of peers I want to play on.
Yep.
I'm working in a culture I want to work in. And I believe in the future-proofed agility of this business.
Yeah, part of what you said too about people begin with 1 foot one foot in and 1 foot out, and that's because it has shifted from just you starting a job and the employer evaluating you. They're evaluating that employer very much right away, so they're not going to be all in until you prove to that employee about where they are. Also, Jason, you mentioned something about kind of common expressions. I certainly was brought up with this idea of good things come to those who wait. My daughters will tell you good things come to those who act. And again, a generational shift in terms of what that looks like.
Yeah.
And by the way, with all the work, as both know, that I do with CEO peer groups want younger and younger members as part of their group. And it's not because they want to understand their younger customers. It's because they want to understand how better to lead their younger employees, because they're not getting it in so many respects. And it really does take some very intentional listening and being open-minded and being agile when it comes to understanding how to go about really meeting the needs of a workforce that's changed a lot. But I'm not sure that if we don't listen well, it's going to be an incredible benefit for anyone leading a good company today.
Yeah, as you've said in different ways, it's win-win or lose-lose, really, right? It's how do you find that sort of virtuous cycle of win-win and avoid that vicious cycle of lose-lose. And so as we just pivot here the conversation a little bit, now let's talk a little bit more. We understand how the landscape is shifting, all the new dimensions and levels and layers and flavors and colors of it. What does this mean, Jason, for the people involved? Let's start, first of all, with organizational leadership, and then we'll talk about HR and others, those kinds of things. But for a mid-level senior leader, what does this mean?
First of all, I think they're the kingpin. I think that middle level leadership rank is the glue that holds culture together, right? They're the ones that can get down and have these types of relationships with their employees and their work, they're the ones that can make the difference in the engagement level within that organization and how committed employees are to the work they're doing. They're the ones that have the ability to bring that variety and allow for experiences to happen at work that are empowering, right? That are satisfying to individuals. So when you talk about that level of leadership, that middle level of leadership, I really think they're the kingpin to the whole solution.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, Leo? And Leo, what does this mean for HR and our, chief human capital people in businesses?
Yeah, well, maybe not calling them human capital anymore might be a good start. But this is where I think Jason's absolutely right. And by the way, when you can create peer groups among those middle level managers you're talking about, cross-functional peer groups who can connect with one another, exchange ideas. What we know both in business and education is the more that people participate in collaborative groups like that, the greater they're able to lead and facilitate collaboration everywhere else in the company. So I think getting them to work together and recognize that their ability to cooperate and collaborate is huge. And I think, in many respects, by the way, and I've seen it both ways, there are some HR departments that are very intentional about building these things. And then you look at a company like Northwestern Mutual that has study groups that, by the way, completely formed organically. Right. In fact, they've got one study group that literally just celebrated or is about to celebrate its 75th anniversary.
Wow.
And when you look at the top performers in the company, these study groups are just peer groups. They call them study groups. They're self-organized. They come up with their own rules. They have their own specialty areas. They are communities of practice that drive, not only them to be better individual employees, but what it does in terms of relationship building and understanding and communication is phenomenal. So again, it can work both ways, but I actually kind of applaud what Northwestern Mutual did, where they have just let this grow and let it. They're just do no harm, right? They're just going to let these things go. But yet, in other companies where I've seen them very intentionally put together with the right mindset and the right leadership, they're also incredibly powerful.
So Jason, I love what Leo said. If not human capital, if not HR, what do we call those people that do that people stuff? What do we call them?
Titles all over the place. Chief culture officers, right?
There you go. There we are.
Chief people officers.
There you go. That's it. What does it mean? What does it mean for them? What does it mean for them, Jason?
To go back, it means a lot for them because, and that's why the one advantage is so powerful, because that kingpin, that level of leadership, Leo mentioned it earlier. There's no brand new silver bullet in leadership principles and skills, but it's how people want to be led. And Mike, that's where you come into play. That's where the agility piece comes in. The agile of leading in an agile way and being adaptive to our workforce and to be adaptive to the talent we haven't brought on board yet.
Well, and I think that, and for me, I think not just that, it is the expression. I think it's not by accident that we arrived at it. A peer-powered culture of agility is what I think people ultimately want. They want truly to play on a team of peers that inspires them and energizes them and helps them raise their game to a whole nother level in a high culture, high passion, high authenticity, high humility, high, purposeful organization with, of course, the agility to be future-proofed. Otherwise, it's all a waste of time. And it's really the stack of those three things that when I think about my own boys, and they play with me at times, and Dad, they're not agile enough. I know they play with me, but I think they kind of mean it too, right? They that's what they want, whether they're an employee or self-employed. What do you think, Leo?
I think that CEOs and starting with the CEO, they have to walk the talk, basically. So look at Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, VaynerMedia, right? So you look at most companies today, and you've got their CEO, and maybe the next in line might be the COO, the CFO, whoever they do, right? At VaynerMedia, Claude Silver is the chief heart officer, and she's the number 2 person in the company. So think about the fact now about sending the message about people. I mean, you've got companies today where you've got, the human resources department, if you will, reporting into the chief legal counsel, for example. They don't even report into the CEO.
Right.
So what kind of a message does that send about what you care, right, about people and what that looks like? Now, I get why that's done, and I'm not, I understand it, but by the same token, you also have to accept the trade-off that comes with the fact that the difference between having a chief heart officer that is the number 2 person in the company and have a human resources department, if you will, that kind of plays in at a different level in the organization is not small, and it is noticed. And so we've got to really think about everything we are both saying and doing when it comes to today's workforce.
Jason, I'm guessing you've got some thoughts on that, because that is right down your street, right?
Well,
in terms of passion and culture and purpose and all of that good stuff.
Exactly. I mean, that level of commitment screams what's important to our organization.
Yeah.
Right. A chief heart officer. I mean, chief employee advocate. Right. I mean, we're employees first. I mean, I was just talking to someone and they brought up the culture at Wegmans. Right. Wegmans is over 100 years old, Northeast grocery chain. Right. And from day one, they're employee first. Right. That's the most important cultural pillar they have. And to stick by that over 100 years is why they're an industry leader, right? Yeah. That they have figured out the relationship between employee and work, and they continue to strive in that element.
And they may over time need to loosen up the word employee, because they'll have more and more non-employee team members, but whether it's team member or associate or whatever they call it.
So again, that relationship between people and work, and having that type of position in an organization that Leo was talking about really drives singleness of purpose.
Yeah.
Right. It's not something that's forgotten.
Yeah. And let's just, in the few minutes we've got left here, let's just focus now on the individual, whether this is a new graduate entering the workforce, perhaps, or, a 30-something or 40-something or 50-something leader, manager. I mean, let's just now be centric on the individual. What does this mean for an individual trying to find their way in their life and in their career? What comes up to you when you think about that?
Well, my nephew just graduated from college just 2 weeks ago, and I spent a lot of time with him anyway. But we got talking about what to do, and he goes, I've been on several interviews, and he goes, I've walked out of several with the thought of, why did they interview me, right? And he said, and probably 70% of them, of the interviews I had, I don't want to work for that company. And it goes back to some of the things we're hitting. And he said, Uncle Jason, he goes, what, he's asking for advice on how to find the right organization for him. He says, I don't have to be in a hurry. Right. But I'm not going to take, he said, I'm not going to take a job just to take a job.
Uncle Jason, I think we've just arrived, Leo, at the new moniker for Jason. Uncle Jason, it is sold.
I thought exactly.
He just said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not taking a job just to go to work. I want to find something that I'm going to enjoy.
Yeah, awesome. Uncle Leo, what do you think?
Yeah, Uncle Leo, right out of Seinfeld. Massive eyebrows, No, it's look, everything we've touched on today. One of the things that, in fact, we had an earlier conversation this morning about a personal branding course that I teach for Rutgers University, and in it we get people to reflect and how important that is. When you think about great brands, they know themselves, they know who they are, they know what they mean to their customers, and they act in a way that expresses those values of not just what they do, but again, who they are in a much more holistic way. To get people to think not in terms of, I think like I did, you graduate college, who's going to give me a job, who's going to hire me, and you figure out what's going on. For people to really be deeply think about what is it that I want to do in my life? Not what do I don't want? What do I want? And where do I put my energy? Where can I add value? With the recognition, by the way, that I could do that for a couple of years. And if I don't love it, I can pivot. I can do some things out there. Yeah. And again, this is where I think employers are the big winner. You're going to find people who are going to be really passionate about what, what they love to do, and to the extent it aligns with what the company really wants to get done, it's a big win.
And a few final thoughts, as I was making my list here of, the different participants in this equation, the HR, the CEO, the individual, I even went to the last category on the list was the loved ones of the individual, partner, spouse, significant other, whatever, label you would use, and what it means for them. And what it probably means is what it meant for my wife and for your partners as well, in that, like you were just saying, Leo, I went through many transitions in my career where we took big risks. In reality, when we look backwards on it, we realized that, well, we could always trust, that if we remained adaptable, it would all be fine, all play out fine. And indeed, it always has. We live life forwards, but we understand it backwards. But it also means something for the loved ones of individuals who, of course, may have their own career and their own job as well, of course. But we're not going to be in this long wavelength career cycle anymore. We're much more likely to be in this short wavelength procession of different things going on. What do you think, Jason? And then we'll close this out.
So my reaction to that is individuals, our population is going through life stages, right? Yeah. At completely different rates. I mean, the population, the world, our behaviors, our tendencies, the things we desire is influencing the rate and speed we're going through life changes. And we're retiring earlier. Some are retiring longer. Some are shifting gears mid-career. Some people are taking gap years in the middle of their career, right? Yeah. All these things are accelerating or making life stage changes unpredictable. And an employer needs to be in tune with that.
Yeah. There we are, everybody. We're just getting started here on this whole new talk track of the new talent war. I realized I forgot to start like we normally did and ask Leo and Jason what they've been up to, but that we pinned them down for the last hour or half an hour rather to be here with us. We'll do that next time. Keep your eyes and ears open, everybody, for more of these kinds of conversations to come around the new talent war. Thanks for being here. See you, and look forward to having you with us next time.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thanks for listening to the One Advantage podcast. If you liked this episode, please consider helping us by rating us wherever you listen, spreading the word, having us as a guest on your podcast or webinar, and mentioning us in social media. Find us at the One Advantage podcast, where you can get more information about us and this episode. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to more great episodes to come.